How's it going, everyone? Roslyn here. Today I've got even more demon builds for you for RAIDOU Remastered. But this time, we're moving to the mid-game with fan favorites Idun, Yoshitsune, and Thoth. Now, I mentioned this in my last video, but I had been under the mistaken assumption that the weakness and resistance icons for Mind and Death were reversed. Specifically, I thought Death was the skull icon and Mind the purple circle thingy. In the majority of SMT and Persona titles, this would be the case, as Atlas is extremely consistent with how their elements are positioned when showing weaknesses and resistances. However, in RAIDOU Remastered, this is not the case. Because of this, there will be points in the footage shown where I pass down the skill Have Mind, when in reality it should have been Have Death instead. This should be the last video in which my footage was recorded while I was mistaken, and I will point this out when it comes up in the video, but I did want to mention it here at the start as well. And with that out the way, let's begin the mid-game fusions with Idun. So for Idun, I have her set up as a healer that can also provide excellent elemental coverage, not unlike Leonin Seed from my last video, and actually Idun can be seen as Leonin Seed's direct upgrade. Being a mid-game demon, we are upgrading the Radi line skills to their next tier counterparts in Blaze, Frostbite, Spark, and Flurry. Diorama, Media, and Rekarm are of course taken for healing, and Dekaja is a nice skill to have access to for dispelling annoying stat debuffs. For passive skills, it's all about reducing incoming damage. Resist Fizz, Fire, and Ice make Idun resistant to those elements, Resist Elect does the same while eliminating her weakness to it, and Have Death reduces the chance that she is hit with death attacks by 50%. Have Mind does nothing for Idun, so you'll actually want to swap it with something else using the changed passive skills feature, but we do want to make sure it's being passed down for Yoshitsune later. So that's the explanation on the build, let's move on to fusing her. To begin, let's go over the demons you'll want to prepare in advance, starting with Sylph. This is the Sylph we fused in my last video, so I'll leave a link to that in the video description just in case. But from her, we'll be grabbing Diorama for combat skills, as well as Resist Fire, Resist Ice, Resist Elect, Have Mind, and Have Death for passive skills. Assuming you're using the Sylph we fused in the last video, she should have all of those skills in her learned passive skills list. Special note about Have Death, as that does require her to be at max loyalty to acquire. The next demon you'll want is Hayataro. You will need to have cleared case file 19, enter Hayataro in order to fuse a copy of him. The skills we're after are Rekarm for combat skills and Resist Fizz for passive skills. Resist Fizz specifically comes from maxing out Hayataro's loyalty. With regards to Rekarm though, be sure to check the pinned comment below. Next you'll want an Okuninushi, none of his skills matter for this fusion. You'll want a Gidon, and similarly, skills don't matter. You'll also want an Okikumushi, once again, skills don't matter here. Next you'll want Leonin Seed. I'm using the one we fused previously, but for our purposes today, that doesn't matter since we're getting the skills we want elsewhere. And finally you'll want a Sadi. You will want Sadi to be at least level 30 to have learned Rekarm, unlike the one I have shown on screen. Again, be sure to check the pinned comment about this. But anyways, once that's all prepared, we can move on to actually fusing Idun. For step 1, we're going to be fusing Sylph with Gidon in order to make a throne. For combat skills, you want to make sure that you're passing down Diorama, everything else is up to you. And for passive skills, we want to make sure that Resist Fire, Ice, and Elect are being passed down, as well as Have Mind and Have Death. The next step is to fuse Throne with Sadi in order to make a Flammus. Here you'll want to pass down Blaze and Diorama. And I'll bring up the pinned comment again because you may also want to start passing down Rekarm from this step as well. And for passive skills, we once again want to make sure that Resist Fire, Ice, and Elect are being passed down alongside Have Mind and Have Death. Next, we are going to fuse Flammus with Okikumushi in order to make a Lilim, making sure to pass down Blaze and Diorama for combat skills. and then once again resist fire, resist ice, resist elect, have mind, and have death for passive skills. Once that's done, we'll be fusing Hayataro with Leonin Seed in order to make a Chernobog. For combat skills, we are only concerned with Recarm for this step. And for passive skills, we want to make sure that Resist Fizz is being passed down. Next is to fuse Chernobog with Okuninushi in order to make a Sybil. And here we want to pass down Frostbite and Recarm for combat skills. And then for passive skills, we want to make sure that Resist Fizz is still being passed down. Finally, we are going to fuse Sybil with Lilim in order to make our Idun. Pass down Blaze, Frostbite, Diorama, and Recarm for combat skills. And then for passive skills, make sure that Resist Fizz, Fire, Ice, and Elect are being passed down, as well as Have Death. For Have Mind, you don't actually need to select it here, just confirm that it's in the skill list. Then to finish the build, you'll want to level up Idun 3 times in order to learn Dekaja, Flurry, and Spark. For our next mid-game demon, we have the ever-powerful Yoshitsune. And the combat skill setup I have here might seem a bit strange, but I have it this way for a reason. You see, I actually don't want Yoshitsune to use a bunch of mag casted elemental skills. Sure, if I gave him elemental coverage, he would of course have those elements to stun enemies, but then this would dilute his ability to use physical attacks, as once the enemy was stunned, he would still prioritize the elemental skills over his physical ones. To combat this, I made sure that the only offensive combat skills he knows are Mighty Blow and Frenzy. Even with this, making full use of this Yoshitsune build is a bit more involved for the player, taking a little bit of micromanaging. And to fully explain that, we'll need to look at his passive skills. But before that, let me quickly finish going over his other combat skills first. Tarukaja offers a 20% boost to physical attack until the end of battle, with Warcry adding an additional 45% as a temporary buff. And then Rakukaja is a 15% buff to defense until the end of battle. Finally, Dekaja is taken as a way to remove stat buffs when necessary. Alright, passive skills. Resist Fizz, Resist Ice, Resist Force, and Have Mind remove both of Yoshitsune's weaknesses and make him resist everything. And then we have Spirit Drain and Unrelenting Focus. Spirit Drain increases the mag obtained from basic attacks, and Unrelenting Focus increases the crit rate of basic attacks. And this is where everything ties together. What you'll do is wait for buffs to go out at the beginning of combat, after which you'll actually want to swap Yoshitsune to don't use skills using the D-pad. In this state, he'll only use basic attacks, which will still be doing decent damage thanks to Unrelenting Focus. But he will also be generating more mag for your other demon, who should ideally be loaded up with elemental coverage to stun enemies. Then once the enemy is stunned, you swap Yoshitsune back to use skills with the D-pad so that he can unload on them with Mighty Blow and Frenzy. For normal encounters, you can honestly skip the micromanagement, but for bosses and elite enemies, it will make Yoshitsune much more efficient. Anyways, that was a lot of explanation for one demon, so let's just finally move on to fusing him. As per usual, we're going to want to prepare a few demons first, starting with Leonin Seed. This is actually the Leonin Seed we fused in a previous video, and we'll be grabbing Resist Force from her. Next, you're going to want a Nagaraja that is at max loyalty in order to get Unrelenting Focus. We'll then need the Tomlin we previously fused in another video, as this is where we'll be picking up Tarukaja and Rakukaja, as well as Spirit Drain. You're going to want a Pixie, level and loyalty don't matter. And finally, you'll want a Nekomata, level and loyalty don't matter here as well. For step 1, we're going to fuse Leonin Seed with Nagaraja in order to make a Gidon. And we aren't concerned with combat skills here, so just choose whatever you want. For passive skills, you want to make sure that Resist Force and Unrelenting Focus are being passed down. For step 2, we'll be fusing Idun with Tomlin in order to make an Arachne. And here we want to pass down both Tarukaja and Rakukaja for combat skills. And we want to make sure that Resist Force, Unrelenting Focus, and Spirit Drain are being passed down for passive skills. Next we'll be fusing Arachne with Pixie in order to make an Archangel. And once again we want to be passing down Tarukaja and Rakukaja. And for passive skills, make sure that Resist Force, Unrelenting Focus, and Spirit Drain are being passed down. Once that is done, we'll be fusing Archangel with Nekomata in order to make a Nandi, passing down Tarukaja and Rakukaja. And then Resist Force, Unrelenting Focus, and Spirit Drain for passive skills. Finally, we are going to fuse Nandi with the Idun we made earlier in order to make Yoshitsune. For combat skills, pick only Tarukaja, Rakukaja, and Dekaja. Once selected, you want to end the selection without selecting any more skills to pass down. And then for passive skills, you want to give him Resist Fizz, Resist Ice, Resist Force, Have Mind, Unrelenting Focus, and Spirit Drain. Once that's all done, you'll want to level up Yoshitsune twice in order to finish the build. For our last mid-game demon of the video, we have Thoth, and he has some amazing resistances, absorbing everything except for physical, gun, death, and almighty. His biggest weakness though is his abysmal vitality stat, but we'll try to at least mitigate that with passives. For now, I have Thoth set up as a damage dealer with some off-healing potential. Just like with Idun, we pick up the next tier of Raidi skills with Blaze, Frostbite, Spark, and Flurry. Makakaja is a 20% increase to magic damage for the entire battle, and then the off-healing comes in the form of Media, Rekarm, and Dia Aura. Since I have him as a damage dealer, grabbing Fire Boost, Ice Boost, Elect Boost, and Force Boost is a must. And then we fill out the last slots with Resist Fizz and Have Death. Resist Fizz will remove Thoth's weakness to physical and make him take 50% reduced physical damage, but even with this he will still get rocked by hard-hitting physical skills, so be ready to pull him back if needed. And then Have Death will remove his weakness to death and make him 50% less likely to be hit by death attacks. Sadly, we can't do anything about gun damage or almighty. So that's the build, let's move on to fusing Thoth now. For starters, we'll of course want to prepare a few demons, beginning with the Lilim we fused in a previous video, as this is where we're going to be getting the elemental boosts from. Additionally, you're going to want an Alp, but the level and loyalty of this Alp doesn't matter. And then once again, you'll want the Idun that we fused earlier in the video. And that's it for prep, so on to step 1. For step 1, we're going to fuse Lilim with Alp in order to make it Flammus. None of the combat skills matter here, so just pick whatever you want. And for passive skills, just make sure that all 4 elemental boosts are being passed down. And then for the second and last step, we're going to fuse Flammus with Idun in order to make our Thoth. Be sure to pass down Blaze, Frostbite, Spark, Flurry, and Media for combat skills. And then for passive skills, you want to give Thoth the 4 elemental boosts, as well as resist Fizz and have Death. The last thing to do to finish the build is to level up Thoth twice so that he learns Dia Aura and Recarm. And that will do it for this video going over 3 incredibly powerful mid-game demon builds in RAIDOU Remastered. If you found this video helpful and informative, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to support the channel further and get yourself some awesome merch in the process, head over to figgies.com where you can purchase collectible magnet figures from a bunch of your favorite video game and anime series, including Atlas series such as Metaphor and Persona 5. These are honestly pretty darn cool. You get a retro-style magnet figure, a reversible metal backplate, and then both a stand and magnet sticker for display. New figures are released in batches all the time. For example, Metaphor's Wave 1 includes the MC, Gallica, Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Heizame, and Persona 5's Wave 1 will include Joker, On, and Morgana. If these seem like something you'd want to pick up, then be sure to use my code RosalindFiggies at checkout for 5% off any purchase of $50 or more. And of course, if you have any questions about this video, RAIDOU Remastered, or any other game that I cover, feel free to hit me up over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RosalindGaming, or on my Discord server, both of which you can find links to in the video description below. Until next time, take care.